Welcome to the only show bringing cops and the community together for some real talk and some real listening. This is uncut. This is uncensored. This is Black and Blue Live. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the show, everybody. How you guys doing out there? Welcome to Black and Blue Live. What's going on, Lizzie? How you doing?
Hey, I'm excited. We got a good show, some amazing people. I'm ready to get it started.
Yes, indeed. So what you been up to? I haven't seen you in a minute.
So, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I cleaned my closet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think I sprayed something in the process.
I was going to say, is there a double meaning that clean your closet out there?
Yeah. Well, I cleaned my closet, and your girl is celebrating. I lived to see the first woman VP.
Yes.
Elect. Like, that's super dope. Not to mention, she's a Howard alum, an HBCU alum. So I'm super excited that first woman of color in the White House. Like,
yes.
What?
Yes.
Red bottom on the Congress floor with VP? Yeah, all of that.
We've been watching that. And your son's going to be going to Howard too, so.
Yes, so I'm so excited, so happy. It's just a good time to be here. And it's almost Thanksgiving, my favorite holiday, so.
All right.
What we cooking? What you cooking? What we eating?
Oh, I ain't going to be cooking nothing. I'm going to be eating, but story for another day.
What we eating?
All right. So everybody, welcome to the show, everybody. This is Black and Blue Live. I'm Dale. That's Lizzie right there. We are the host of the show, and we got a pretty good show here for you today. Thank you for joining us here on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and Periscope. Everyone check this out. Our first comment here from Leon Jones says, I love this. Thank you. We love you too, sir. Appreciate you for joining us. Thank you. So let's get on to the show. So today's show is about schools and police officers. I know there's a big movement about trying to defund the police, trying to pull police officers out of schools, school resource officers in particular. I am a school resource officer. You were at one time. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So we'll talk about that with some current school resource officers right now. So let's bring them on the show. Our first guest is a school resource officer out here in California. He works for the Colton Police Department. Everybody, please help us welcome in Mr. Rich Randolph. How you doing, sir?
Thank you so much, Dale. Thank you so much, Lindsay.
So glad you're here. Thank you for joining us.
All right. And our next guest here, he's also out here in California, but he works a little west of us in the big city. He works for the Los Angeles School Police Department. Everybody, please help us welcome in Mr. Rudy Perez.
Rudy!
How you doing, sir?
Hey, how's it going, guys? Good to see you guys.
Good to see you. Fun to be on. Yes, thank you for joining us. And our last guest here today, he works way, way, way east of us in the great state of Maryland. He's in Baltimore, working for Baltimore County. Everyone, please help us welcome in. Yes, please help us welcome in Mr. Don Bridges.
We would love to hear all of that if you could just unmute.
This is live, ladies and gentlemen.
I got so excited I forgot to hit the unmute. Thank you.
All right, thank you for joining us out here in California with us, Mr. Bridges. So let's talk about everybody's do some introductions and everyone's credentials here real quick. So we'll go with you first, Rich. Why don't you tell everybody about yourself and what you do and where you do it?
Good afternoon or good evening, everyone. I'm Rich Randolph. I'm with the Colton Police Department. I've been at Colton PD just going over 15 years. I worked patrol, assigned to Arrowhead Regional Medical Center, and now I'm currently the school resource officer for the Colton Joint Unified School District. I'm also the president of the San Bernardino Riverside School Resource Officers Association. Glad to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you. Thank you for joining us. Next up, Mr. Perez, tell everybody who you are, what you do, and where you do it.
Well, thanks again, Dale. I appreciate being on the show. I'm honored to be here with some fine people like Rich and Don. And like I said, thank you so much. My name is Rudy Perez. I am a sergeant with the LA School Police Department. I've been on the job coming up on my 20th year this year. It's been definitely some challenging times, and I'm sure we're going to have a conversation about that from patrol services to working middle schools, high schools. We work in threat assessments. I was a detective for 7 years, and I get the privilege to serve the officers of the LA School Police Department at this time, and a school district with the LAUSD that services about 600,000 kids, 1,700 locations in 23 cities and about 69,000 employees. So it's a pretty big beast that we have to work in and around. But I love it. I love serving that community and the kids and making sure that we mentor, lead, and protect kids safely through graduation.
All right. Thank you for joining us. Good story there. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Bridges, tell everyone who you are, what you do, and who you do it for.
Good evening, and thank you guys for this tremendous honor. My name is Don Bridges. I'm a police officer in Baltimore County, Maryland. Our agency has about 2,200 officers. We serve over 115,000 kids. We have a school resource officer program that I was a part of starting back in 1998. And our officers are assigned to the school district in a partnership that I think is one of the best partnerships in the entire nation. We're very, very committed to having our officers within our schools, and those officers serve three roles that are very, very important to the safety and security of our kids. Number one, law-related education, getting into the classroom, teaching kids how to be productive citizens. Law-related mentoring kids. So when kids are in crisis, they're going to come to that officer. That officer is going to be a part of the problem-solving process that's going to ultimately get our kids back on track. And then number three, law enforcement. And in that role, we are going to work collaboratively with our partners in education with respects to crisis planning, crisis readiness, so that if the unthinkable happens within our schools, we are in a position to handle it where we save the lives of students and our staff. This is a program that I believe very, very strongly in, and we have been doing it here for like 20 years, and I am celebrating my 29th year of a service, and there is no other position within law enforcement that I would rather be doing than that of a school resource officer.
Absolutely. Love that. 29 years. Okay.
You know what, Dale, what this guy forgot to say is this is the past president of NASRO, the National Association of School Resource Officers, and I get to serve as the vice president of NASRO now. But thank you, Don, because he forgot to bring that up.
Yeah. I'm sure he didn't forget. He was going to bring that up at some point, I'm sure. Yeah, but what is, now that we're on the topic, what is NASRO?
Go ahead, Don. I'll let you take care of that.
NASRO is the National Association of School Resource Officers. It is the largest trainer of school safety professionals in the entire world. We basically provide that foundation for officers that are going to be assigned to America's schools. What we believe very, very strongly at NASRO is that before we put a police officer in a school, God darn it, they've got to be trained. They've got to be carefully selected and properly trained. And when we look at these horrific stories that are going on in our nation's schools, the first question that needs to be asked is what type of training did the officers have before they assigned them to schools? When we look at successful school resource officer programs and successful partnerships, those partnerships are deeply rooted in police departments and school districts that have invested in that process. This is not just something that happens overnight. This is something where districts have to work collaboratively so that they can implement programs that are going to be about the most important things, putting our kids first, and then putting kids in a position where they can be successful. So if I were implementing a school resource officer program anywhere on the globe, I would go through the NASRO basic training because it sets the foundation for success. Our training has been referred to as the gold standard in school and in school-based police officer training.
Now, you bring up the training. So I did school resource officer a long time ago, but when we first came on, a lot of us were put through the SRO school, but it was 2 weeks. In our training, what I took from it, it mainly focused on active shooters, what to do in that. It talked about the officers' kind of involvement in the different, I guess, aspects of it in terms of dealing with family intervention, mediation, and kind of the mentorship. I imagine now it's definitely grown a lot more. Can either one of you all speak to what the training now looks like for what you would say a successful training should cover in that process to be effective in a school resource officer program?
So the great process behind that was, that's how we met Dale and Randolph. We ended up engaging in the NASRO training where the State Department of the DOJ, the COPS office, ended up giving the grants. And it was that I'm going to, as the vice president of NASRO right now, we get to represent SROs from 11,000, I believe the last number we looked at, across the country. I'll get to put my plug in right now. And we have a national conference every year. This year is going to be in Orlando, Florida, God willing, obviously with this COVID, from July 11th through the 16th, 2021 at the Shingle Creek, at the Rose and Shingle Creek Hotel, which is a pretty amazing. So now to answer the questions, I think all of us in this podcast took the basic California Post. You're right. It was a 32-hour course. It's been brought up to my attention a few weeks ago. It's being redone. It's being revamped. And a lot of what that Don talked about, basically understanding, what the role environment is. We always believe it's you're an informal counselor, you're a teacher, and you're that law enforcement figure that comes into play. And I think the training has evolved into really one thing: relational-based policing is relationships with verified trust. And that's the verified trust that we have with our communities, that's with our students, and with our school stakeholders, our staff, right? And that's really the biggest transition that I see from guys moving in from patrol into a school-based law enforcement contact is, look, this is really not about the enforcement anymore. It's truly not. We don't wake up every day and say, how many kids are we taking to jail today? How many kids can I get? No, it's truly is that I know Junior, or I know the young little girl going, now, this is a name behind her, right? I know her family. I know her father. They could be generations after generations that have attended this high school, right? And you look at it as truly a person. And that's the big difference that we are engaging now, especially in NASRO, where we're talking about the teen brain. How does the teen brain develop? We're talking about, obviously narcotics, the digital fingerprint of what kids are engaging out in the social media. So you want a well-rounded police officer that has relationships first. And that's kind of what we're engaging now in the California Post training, and what you will find in our training also in NASRO.
Yeah. What do you find about that, Rich, in your duties as a school resource officer?
Basically what I'm saying is I totally have to echo what Don and Rudy said is it's developing relationships. And what we're going through right now with law enforcement throughout the country is we need a rebranding and a reset. We need a rebranding and a reset. And what's going on is kids are going home, they're on social media, and they're seeing everything anti-cop, things of that nature. And their parents are saying the same thing. You've got younger parents, you've got single parent homes, and that's all they're seeing on their phone is anti-cop. So what that is doing is it's not helping us. And so as far as the rebranding goes, and I love how Don said we can't take cops out of schools, and there's a little bit of a movement going on that. Hopefully it does start our legislators throughout this country, especially the state of California, start to open their mind that we need to start using the relationships that cops have in schools at a younger age and keep that going. And if those relationships of those cops and kids interacting from second grade, third grade, DARE, grade, PAL, whatever, and you're working your way up into high school is so critical, because if you take out that element now, and little kids aren't seeing the officers handing out stickers, the officers going in and reading to the kids or doing their DARE lectures, it's so critical, because if you take law enforcement out now and let kids grow up in the social media platforms they're seeing today, all of a sudden when they're in high school and they need Counseling's done some mandatory reporting, and they've called the police because little Janie was touched inappropriately by a family member, and the police go there to get that investigation, to get those statements, because now you've got a victim who's a child. All they're thinking about is what they've been raised on and what they've seen on social media and television since they were in 5th grade.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dale and Elizabeth, can I add something?
Absolutely.
Can I keep it 100?
Hey,
That's
yeah.
what we're here for.
And what I mean when I say that is the great philosopher Charles Barkley said the other night, and I'm going to be honest while I'm here, because honesty is the only way that we move this ball forward. And then when we move this ball forward, what we're saving kids, but most notably, we're saving kids of color. And Rudy can tell you this firsthand. He and I were very, very fortunate to have been chosen to go to a lot of cities in this country, cities of color, major metropolitan cities, to do SRO training. And what separated those major cities from suburban America was that we implemented school resource officer programs. I'm gonna call them out because I got 29 years on. I can lead tomorrow. So I'm gonna be 100. All right.
Let me get my tea. Hold on. Let's all get comfortable.
Rudy and I got the opportunity to go to cities like Chicago. We went to Ferguson. We did Baltimore. And what all those cities had in common was that there was a need for police officers in those schools. But where the injustice was done was that they did not invest in the training. Suburban or white America invest in the training for police officers and talk about partnerships and MOUs.
Absolutely.
Inner city America doesn't do that.
Right.
We police in the beginning, we were policing the schools in the same fashion in a lot of cases that we were doing the streets.
Do you think
one wise guy said, you kind of stuck on stupid. You're doing the same thing, and it's not an effective way to actually do it. So one of the things that we saw firsthand was when we were able to, with the assistance of the federal government, the cops office, when we were able to get into Baltimore, when we were able to get into cities like Atlanta, when we able to get into Ferguson, we were able to provide those officers who have been in those schools for over 20 years in some cases with training. We cannot put police officers in schools with the proper training and the careful selection of those officers. So when we look at these horrific stories that are going on, the first question that needs to be asked is, where did they get their training?
Where did they get their training?
Process? Because communities of color, just like communities that are not of color, need a police presence within schools. That's the world we live in. But what we have to do is we have to do what I call shrink the badge. And then what I mean when I say that is we don't need to be in schools over policing. We need to be that valuable resource. And we have to recognize that we police schools in a very different fashion from what we police on the streets.
Yeah.
If we do that in the right way, then it's going to pay positive dividends for our children. And I'm very, very proud of the program that we've had here in Baltimore County, Maryland for over 20 years. It works, but it does not work unless there is an investment on the part of the leadership structure within your county or your city. And the commitment means that you're going to invest in the training. Training isn't free. Nothing's free.
Nothing's free.
So what we have to do is to make sure that we invest in the training. We look at some of the best practices throughout the country for programs that have been very successful. Successful programs like they have out in LA. That LA Unified School District does a fantastic job dealing with students and dealing with insurmountable odds that those kids face every day. So when we talk about this whole movement of removing officers from our schools, yes, we have to stop thinking either or. It should not be we're either going to have a social worker or this or a cop. We need both of them because the need in this country is just that.
Mm-hmm.
You had mentioned, and I know we got comments, but I just want to throw this out there. You had said that, especially in communities of color or inner city communities, that they're not investing in the resources. And I'm going to kind of piggyback on that, or kind of tap in on an opinion of mine. Would you say that some of that is because those communities do not have positive relationships with the law enforcement resources available to them, so they're not necessarily tapping into what it is out of fear, out of not knowing, because there's a lack of a relationship between them? There's not really a community bank for them to know to go to. Would that be one of the reasons for the resources? Because I feel like community leaders, like churches and things, they've evolved, but they don't have the federal government. They don't have those accesses we do as law enforcement. But if we don't have a good community relationship, they're not coming to us and we're not going to them. Would that be a fair statement? Or no, you're saying period, they're not doing any of that at all in these type of situations?
Elizabeth, I would say that it is a little bit of all of that. I think that you're spot on. And then one of the things that I can tell you is that over the last 20 years being in the Baltimore metropolitan area, I have been so very, very blessed to have had partnerships with so many organizations. And the organization that I'm so very, very proud of is we're actually doing a webinar for the Center for Poverty and Inequality over at Georgetown University. And then we're going to have that conversation. It was the most amazing conversation I've ever had in the 20 years that I have done this. The other night, I was actually screened by girls of color, because Georgetown now is taking the bull by the horn. And then we want to have a conversation about how SROs police girls of color. And I'm on this webinar with all these beautiful young queens, girls of color, and they are grilling me about what cops do. And it was absolutely amazing. And my hat goes off to Georgetown. And then what we want to do is to have that dialogue so that we can understand girls of color better. And then what I want to do, my long-term vision, is to bring those girls of color to the National Association of School Resource Officers National Conference and have them teach cops about how to deal with them. Now, what do you think about that? I think that is absolutely amazing. And they were not sure as to how that would go. We were on the phone for about 45 minutes, and I'm telling you, it was on fire. It was powerful. And that's how we go about making this process work. No, everything we've done within school-based policing has not been perfect. But I think that if we're open to listening to the people that we serve, then we become better at what we do.
That's amazing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's get a couple comments here on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and Periscope. Joseph Cameron on Facebook says, thank you to Rich and Rudy for representing the school police officers and SROs across the state of California. All right. Thank you. Appreciate you there. And Beth Hoffman Sanborn on Facebook says, love you guys representing NASRO and the tremendous non-traditional work SROs do. Appreciate you for tuning in there. And then Robert Steed on Facebook says, does the panel believe that school board-based police departments are more effective than a local agency PD or sheriff's office providing the SROs on a contract basis? Ooh. Well, since you're on a dedicated school police department, Rudy, maybe you can answer that question for us. You're muted there. Let me unmute you. There you go.
Sorry about that.
I got you. Go ahead.
So this is what I tell people on that. There's two differences when you get hired on a department, and there's really a mission driven behind it. In my department, we are very mission oriented. That is what we handle. We are an agency that really represents a diversity in our district from across spectrums. But when we pick our officers, you know, and we tell them, you understand that when you're coming here, we are a school-based mentality, mission-driven organization, which once again, number one thing for us is safety. I always, if anything, I say this: education is primary, safety's always. And if we can keep that context, we usually get where we want to go. But there is a big difference sometimes when you get the municipality to a school-based law enforcement agency, I find that there's roles that we both play. A lot of people say, how do we interact with LAPD, where 90% of our work is in LAPD land? And we actually work perfectly well. We understand our roles. We understand the situations that might handle. There's items and some crimes that we have to turn over based on the qualifications under 830.32, right? That we have to turn over sometimes investigations to them because they would become primary. Other than that, there is really a symbiotic relationship that we have. But there's two different missions here. And the beauty about it is you have two people here like Rich and Don that have a big difference from where I come from. Everything we surround ourselves with.
Lost your signal there a little bit there, Rudy.
Education.
Maybe. We'll come back to you, Rudy. Maybe you can come back on your stream. You froze up there, but he brought up a good point about what the duties and responsibilities of each respective department are, and I think we handled that well. What's your relationship of your school district there, Rich, and in your department?
We've got an excellent working relationship. Colton, we've got about 16 schools. We've got a public safety department. And Don, I'm glad you keyed in on partnerships. That's something I really want to focus on, is partnerships and collaborations are so important. So if you've got a good partnership and collaboration with your public safety department or your security department, in Colton, we're very diverse. We've got a second to none security department. We're involved in their interviews for their hiring. We're involved in their training. We are involved in their briefings. What goes on patrol, I bring that, me and my partner bring that to the briefings and security within law enforcement realms that we could share. Because what goes on in the streets, whether you have a fatality involving a family member, it's a small town, 53,000. If I've got a fatality or a house that caught on fire and family members were displaced, I bring that to our student services department. So we've got an excellent collaboration with our public safety department. We fall under student services, and we also have a very good relationship with our teachers union. And that's something I've stressed as a president for our SRO association. All SROs should be networking with your teachers union. Okay, a lot of teachers don't know that SROs also are here to serve them. So when you get those harassing phone calls, or you're getting those attacks online right now, online learning there's a lot of teachers that are going through some bantering right now. Nothing wrong with contacting your SRO. That vehicle break-in, you don't need to call the police. You've got us here. So we've got a very good working relationship in Colton. And I'd say, I'm glad Don focused on having a good relationship with everyone. And Rudy also said that it's good to have a good working relationship with LAPD. All of our jurisdictions, Colton, we've got multiple jurisdictions we intersect with, and I like to network with different agencies. So no matter what, we have no problem extending the hand across the board.
All right. Another comment on Facebook from David Gomez: the size of the school district dictates the type of SROs as well. Would you say that, Don and Rudy, that since you guys are with large departments?
I couldn't hear the question. Go one more time.
Yeah, let me see if we can bring that back up there. David Gomez says the size of the school district dictates the type of SROs as well. So I guess if your district is pretty large, the sorts of problems that you deal with, the hiring pool may be a little different than others.
Well,
can you touch on that?
Well, it truly is. It depends. I think, the interesting part is every police agency that you see in the LA County area right now is fighting for that body, right?
Yep.
And whether it goes to, Val Verde School Police Department, San Bernardino School Police Department, Los Angeles School Police Department, we're all pulling from the same pool. I don't think it changes things in that context. Now, the beast in Los Angeles is huge, and the same crimes that affect the area and the schools, the community, affect the schools. So obviously we've had an uptick on shootings in Los Angeles that absolutely has been affecting us right now. And so it really, truly, it doesn't affect. As big as you are, it's the same, I don't want to say beast, it's the same issues we're having, but it's in a context. I tell people sometimes we can't handle the smaller things because we're running around just putting fires out. But when you're working somewhere like it's a small, he gets to put the fires out before they start. Intervention and prevention is super important, and that's one context you can work in.
Real quick question, and it looks like some of the comments kind of brought up on this. How do you balance, I guess, admin expectations against the legal parameters of law enforcement, and kind of juggling that balance as not to create a hostile working environment, say with our educators, but collaborating? What are some things you would recommend, Rich?
If I can, we've got an excellent working relationship in our school district. And one thing I encourage everyone is have a good working relationship with your upper administration. And then at the site level, our SROs are involved in cabinet. We go to the cabinet meetings. I'm sitting there side by side with my director of public safety, and we're going over sharing things, everything from football game management to now COVID restrictions, new rollouts of new security measures as far as Megan's Law, our Megan's Law, our Raptor system, the implementation of the Raptor system. They run things through the police department, and we have a Monday debrief where I share what went on in the streets on Monday or throughout the weekend, where patrol might have intersected with a house party or came in contact with kids where some kind of criminal element occurred. No matter what, it came to the SRO, and hey, Officer Randolph, can you look into it? We didn't take action, but maybe you can. Have a talk with the kids and the parents. And then I share that with our cabinet, which everyone's in the room: athletics, your counselors, and your administration. Everyone's on the same page, communicating. It's like a constant collaboration to benefit the community.
It's wonderful.
I want to add something also. I think that when we start looking at how this process works, police departments have to have they have to not have a criminal charge mentality first. Because when we work within an educational environment, what we're here to do is educate children. And then many of the things that happen within schools, administrators do an outstanding job handling that.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I would say is that when we look at SROs, the number one thing that we have to make sure that SROs understand is remember what it was like back when you were a kid. So when you hear this whole conversation about criminalizing juvenile behavior, a lot of that deals with the perspective that the law enforcement agency has. And what needs to happen is SROs have to have the autonomy and the freedom to not feel like they have to criminally charge kids for a lot of things that are very, very minor. I feel very, very firmly that the successes that we've seen in this region of the country are successes where we have included parents. Because if you want to see juvenile behavior change, it changes as a result of a very collaborative approach, and that's including all of the stakeholders. And my goodness, you got to include the parents. And then sometimes when you make that call, you are making that call when you see that kid that's coming in late every day. When Rudy and I do these training classes, we talk about what that call sounds like. You see that kid that's coming in for the fifth straight day late. You pick up the phone, you call that mom. No, outside of like what you do, nothing's outside of what you do, because we're in the kid saving business. You're going to say, Mrs. Jones, this is Officer Jones calling. Your son is not in trouble, but this is the 5th consecutive day that he's been late. What can we do to get him back on track? No, he's not in trouble. Nobody's being charged. But what can I help you do to get him back on track?
Yeah.
You're speaking to that. A question for you, for all of you all, because I think in some of the community meetings that I've sat in is that one of the frustrations of our citizens is that schools sometimes, or admins, they use these truancies or these issues and use law enforcement in essence to deal with the problem. They may be limited on resources, or they're tired of dealing with, or, kind of the pipeline issues. So how, as an officer, and Dell probably has experienced this too, where I know for me, sometimes I'd be sitting in on these hearings and I'm like, nah, we're not going this route. we're going to expend all of these things, but I have the support of my agency to do that. When you don't necessarily, like how Rich had said, have the support, what do you recommend for officers who may be the Lone Ranger in those situations on how not to become the pawn in something where it like kind of, we forgot the whole point is to save the kids? What do we do in those situations? What would you recommend in rectifying that?
Can I say something on that? One of the things that I always like look at it, one of the things that I look at when it comes to issues of like, should I or shouldn't I think about the enormity of the position that I hold. Law enforcement officers throughout this nation are entrusted with tremendous amounts of authority. We can take somebody's life. That's the most extreme. None of us want to do that. Oh my God, if we can take somebody's life, then we've got to put on our big boy pants or our big girl pants, and then we've got to say, no, I am not doing this. And you've got to feel comfortable enough within your own skin to recognize that within the capacity of a school resource officer, there are some times where you're going to have to make decisions that might not necessarily be popular. What you cannot do is, I call it, you cannot be the heavy of the administration or the enforcement arm. Because if you start doing that, then I'm going to tell you, you are going to be negatively affecting the lives of so many kids. And sometimes what you have to do in the capacity of an SRO is you have to be that leader. And then if you start to suggest ideas and the administration knows that you're all in, a lot of times they will follow your lead. That police officer within a school has a lot of authority. And if you use that authority in the right way, you can benefit so many kids. I mean, there aren't too many situations that I can recall over almost 30 years where I have not been able to persuade parents or administration to do things that are truly in the best interest of the kid and eliminating putting them in the criminal justice system, because that is not what we want.
Right. Absolutely.
I think to answer that, Dale, one of the things that we have to do is the partnerships that we have in our schools, whether it's the mental health evaluation teams, our counselors. When we find ourselves in that situation that you talked about, I think it's, listen, let me not be the only one saying I'm standing up for this kid. Let the community come in behind me and say, look, this kid needs resources. This kid needs, because guess what? I was that kid. Don was that kid. Rich was that kid. And because everybody in this picture was that kid. And because we got the right resources. And guess what? I have great mom and dad, love me, but I needed an external support to get me through. I was that kid that still has learning disabilities and, writes backwards and, deals with that. So till you find the rhythm of that child and the support of that child, that SRO needs to be the advocate to get that kid. Once again, let's get kids to graduate, to raise a mature, strong American, to graduate and give back. And that's why I think all three of us are here.
Yeah, yeah. So real quick, another comment on Facebook from a Marie Lee says, nice job, Sergeant Perez. I wanted to talk about, and your department is actually watching as well. Thank you for representing the LASPD, Sergeant Perez. All right. Thank you for joining us, admin or PIO, whoever it is watching that over there. So, in these times we're talking about, COVID restrictions and us in schools, SROs in schools, the duties are a little different now. How do we find ourselves, finding things to do? What are our roles now? Now that the kids aren't in school. I know for me as an SRO, part of the reason why I signed up is for what we were talking about, interacting with these kids. But now we're not interacting with the kids because they're not in school. What are we finding that we can do to continue those relationships during COVID?
Can I answer that? Let me say this. I think that what it really comes down to is that we have been dealing with this COVID issue for a very, very long time. And I think that the role that school resource officers play currently in this situation is a direct reflection of how leadership within the police department understands the importance of community policing. So we don't have to answer it, but when you look at what you're doing within your respective agency, that speaks to what the leadership feels about school, about community policing. And we know firsthand that school-based policing is the highest degree of community policing. So when we have leaders in this country that go to their town hall meetings and they're talking about community policing, and it all sounds good because that's a political in thing, it's the it. The proof is, how are you using your cops during this time? So we don't have to, we don't have to score you. You guys individually know what it means within your respective agencies. And it truly speaks to whether or not they get it or they don't get it when we look at the fact that law enforcement in this nation right now is in trouble.
Yeah.
And COVID, for as bad as it seems, is an opportunity. So when you look at your respective agencies, you can evaluate it on your own, whether or not they're taking advantage of this opportunity or are they squandering this opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And, my partner and I are trying to find ways that we can still interact with these kids, with the teachers on their Zoom calls and their Zoom classes as well. You know, that's one avenue that we can take as well, where we can still interact with the kids during their classes. Since we're not going to their houses, we are going to their houses in my respective department. And Rich can talk about this as well. The system that pulls out, keywords and photographs and all those well checks and all that. We actually go to the houses, but those are kids that are, maybe doing something, or we have to check up on them. But, again, we wanted to interact with these kids on the daily and show them, a friendly face. And now a lot of those relationships are just when they are messing up or they think they're in trouble. So it's a little different.
Dale, what we're doing also is we are connecting we're doing PALs and we're connecting online. We're doing Zoom classes with them. Part of our stuff is like, hey, we're checking in. How are you guys doing? Is there anything we can help you with? To the extent that this, like Christmas and Thanksgiving, what we'll be doing is we'll be giving 2,000 backpacks away. We'll be giving meals, dropping off meals to our kids that needs them. And once again, that is the role. Honestly, this is the role. The SRO role is going to be the role that most municipalities are going to have to emulate now, because it truly is about relational-based policing and caring. It's about walking the beat. And I'm not trying to go with whatever party. To remove SROs from a campus is a mistake. We are the answer of what everybody is seeking to find. And we are the non-traditional aspects of going, let's make contact with kids. Let's make, whether it's on Zoom, like for Halloween, we're like, hey, send us your picture in, hashtag us, because they're on these machines also, right? So hashtag us. We'll send a gift card out to you, whoever was the best one. So that's what we're doing to stay connected with during these COVID moments also. But once again, it's the non-traditional law enforcement that we're going to be engaging in again.
Yeah.
Rich, do you feel also, I guess, or how would you add to this conversation in regarding to SRO's roles now with COVID?
I would say the roles have definitely changed. And one thing, not to alarm everyone, but parents need to know is this is a dark time for kids to sit at home. They want to be with their friends. They want to see teachers. They want to talk to counselors. And so a lot of kids are lashing out. And like Dale had talked about our monitoring systems, yeah, we've got a process and certain alerts will come in. Our public safety and us will get it. And yeah, my partner and I, we do quite a bit of welfare checks. Not only welfare checks of kids that don't log in after about a month, but kids that are talking about suicide, that stuff is happening. You're seeing a lot more of that. And with kids on devices now and on social media more, if you look at the FBI statistics, predatory behavior online to our kids is tripled throughout the country. And parents and legislators and lawmakers are not even paying attention to that because we're so wrapped up in the law enforcement, get rid of cops in schools. Well, do you know what's really going on at home? Your kid is getting subjected. You've got people that are getting online, talking to kids, luring them out. And that's why we've got kids that are running away, missing kids, and the predatory behavior, as it's not getting picked up in the media, probably because people don't want to look at it. But when it comes to our kids, I mean, you can only go so far. I mean, we want to protect them. So SROs, we are going after that. So I'd say my partner and I have become more of an investigative role. We're also involved in the COVID restrictions, the build up, the returning of athletes coming back to our schools. That's great. We're lucky in our district that it's a good collaboration, that everyone's at the same table. But I think our roles have become a lot more investigative based. We need to go out more, and we are.
Yeah, yeah. Let me get a few more comments in here from our social media viewers here. Carl Baptiste on Facebook says, not every police officer could be a school resource officer, and it takes the right officer. And I totally agree with that. Daniel Marmolejo on Facebook says, it's been an honor to work with Dale, Elizabeth, and Rich on many occasions. This topic is definitely needed at all levels, and glad this is a great topic discussion. This collaboration amongst upper level school management and law enforcement management is very critical, including building school relationships, community relationships, and much more. SROs are critical, and each of you have done an extraordinary job of adapting through the pipeline of understanding the school culture. You are awesome. We appreciate you there, Daniel. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And Lynn Taylor says, yes, again, your sphere of influence. I agree with that. Kathleen Causey says, hello, Officer Bridges. Thank you for your dedication to students, staff, families, and communities.
I'm gonna need y'all autographs after this. Y'all fabulous and famous.
Like a movie star.
Yeah, no doubt. David Gomez again on Facebook says, I've been an SRO for 8 years at 3 different schools. Here are a few things I've learned. Number one, relationship building with students is one of the most important and useful things you can do. 2, the kids who cause the most trouble need you the most. The kids with good support at home don't need you like the ones who have troubled home lives. To date, I have never met a magically bad kid. There's always a reason. And number 3, love the kids as much as legally possible. For some of the kids, you might, looks like it got cut off there, but we get the gist of it. Thank you there, David. And all right, so we got some good conversation here with the guests here. Do you have anything? It sounded like you had something to add there, Don, while I was reading that there.
Well, I want to say this. One of the big things that I think the SRO programs have to do now, more so than anything, is that programs so often become complacent, and I think that the advocacy work that each individual SRO probably hasn't done, they need to do. They need to get out, get to those PTA groups, get to all those groups that are out in their neighborhoods. And then also one of the things that I believe very, very firmly in is in that staff development training. Be the type of SRO that is out there leading the charge. We have to make sure that we explain to leadership on the schoolhouse level specifically what our roles are within the school. And I think that the advocacy work for this program, it is needed more now than ever. That comment that came in was Kathleen Causey. She's our school board president, and she's been a tremendous advocate. And I could just say this: if we all had leaders like Kathleen Causey, we would all be much, much better, because she is such a supporter of what our school resource officers do, and they are in our corner, because it takes all of us to save our children. All of us.
Yes, indeed. Takes a village.
Yes, it does.
And getting back to the kind of the premise of the show, the importance of having police officers, SROs in the school, people that are opposed to that get into the fact that, we're police officers and we're in schools, and the pipeline through the justice system, and, heavy-handedness and all that type of stuff. Let me ask you guys, how often when you are SROs, when you're working in an educational environment, do you actually do enforcement actions? I know most of our job is building relationships. But, we got those people that say, we're out there citing for every little thing. We're putting kids through the justice system. How often do you actually do that?
Okay, I'll go first. honestly, we've created such a robust diversion program and restorative justice program that honestly, when it comes down to enforcement, Dale, we've been very little about it now. Not because we don't care or we don't want to enforce. There were certain things under California Penal Code Book 707B that we're mandated by the state to, if you have to take somebody in custody, mandated, right? And we all know that in California. But we've grabbed a large portion of certain crimes, and what we do is we're pushing it through our diversion program because we don't want to be that enforcement process. We don't want to be that boogeyman. We were looking at our stats recently, and from 130,000 calls, 115,000 calls last year, we used pepper spray 4 times. That's from 115,000 calls to our schools. Mm-hmm. We had to use pepper spray 4 times. I mean, that number is very little, very, very little compared to other agencies that we work with or other municipalities, obviously, right? But guess what? These groups and these anti-police groups grabbed that information and ran with it. They pepper sprayed our students. Guess what? It is better than a lot of people. Use of force is ugly. I always tell people there's never a time where use of force is going to look pretty. Let me escort you down. Let me hold you. And it doesn't. When officers use force, it's ugly. So I tell people it's never going to look pretty. And reality is guys need tools. They need tasers. They need pepper spray. They need these things because guess what? If you remove pepper spray, you remove a taser from the belt of an officer, what are you going to leave him with? I say you're going to leave him with a pipe and a handgun. And you can't do that, right? A baton is a metal pipe, and you can't do that. That's why de-escalation tools have been huge in our department. How do we speak to kids? How do we understand special education? When you arrive on scene is, hey, what's his IEP say? Is this a manifestation of his disability? As an SRO and a well-prepared SRO, guess what? I can step back and say, this is not a law enforcement movement right now. You need to get other resources to this location. And that's what a well-trained SRO will look like. Go ahead, Donna. Anybody else can jump on this?
Well, let me add this. One of the things that I'm very, very proud of is that NASRO is always investing in SROs and in school safety. One of the things we just did was we just completed a survey, and the survey deals specifically with what is going on with respects to what SROs do on a very, very regular basis. So in the coming weeks, you want to go on to www.nasro.org and then look at this survey where there were over 4,000 officers that were actually surveyed. And that survey speaks to specifically how the SROs are spending their time. And then it is going to also address issues of dealing with the use of force. And then what we're finding is that across the board, our SROs that are trained through our organization using our triad model are not the SROs that are finding themselves in situations where they have to go hands-on. When Rudy and I teach this class across the globe, one of the things we encourage SROs to do is to inventory those resources. So when there's something going bad within a school, bring those school psychologists.
That's right.
Social worker with you. You don't have to be in there. You should not be the cop that's in the building that feels like you have to take on this thing by yourself. This is a collaborative approach, and we have to use all members of the team to ensure the safety and the well-being of our children, and that is most important.
Absolutely. Another comment from Facebook from a Jane Horowitz Lee says parents do appreciate our SROs. Thank you, Jane. We appreciate you as well. Leon Jones on Facebook says, thank you. Awesome panel. Great show. Thank you there, Leon. Appreciate you. And again, another comment. Thank you for all the comments on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and Periscope. Lynn Taylor says, thank you all for what you do to protect our children. We need that more than ever. It does take a village and real love. Children know when you're real, care, and genuinely love them. Thank you for that comment there, Lynn. So real quick, what do you think is one of the more challenging parts of your job on the daily when we were in the schools? What do you think is one of the more challenging parts of being an SRO and working in the school? Go ahead, Rich. You jump in there.
Yeah, I'd like to go first. I'd like to say the negative stereotypes. Everyone on this call, and we've all admitted in policing, we want reform. We welcome reform. but we do it together. And that's what we ask. And yes, have SROs put 5-year-olds in the back of police cars? They sure have. Have SROs tase kids? Yes, they have. And like Rudy said, use of force looks bad no matter what. But I think, I'm not trying to brag about my agency, but our administration is so strong on our youth services component. Part of our FTO component, I'm an FTO, is the patrol officer comes onto a campus. And talk about throwing a cop off, a street cop off their balance, is put them in the middle of a high school campus. Okay?
Yeah.
Even it can be overwhelming as an SRO for you sometimes, but you get used to it. And yes, you need to properly, I'm glad Don talked about it, properly vet. For me, I had to go through an extensive approval vetting process through my school district. I care about my community. I've got a small town. I care about the way my cops are perceived, and I care most importantly about what my kids perceive as far as cops. I get calls on the weekends from my cops. Hey, Randolph, we're here at this house. What do you think? Hey, that kid, Rudy talked about perfectly. SROs are special. IEP, learning about disabilities, being involved in the PBIS component, sitting down with counselors and educators. It takes a special cop to sit at that table, not a patrol cop. Patrol cops can go out and do their thing, and SROs can do the same thing, but you want the best for the best. So I'd say my most challenging thing is the unfair bias of SROs. I'm still hearing about prisons to pipeline. No offense to anyone that's on this podcast. Outdated information. I challenge them to update that information because we're using diversion programs left and right. There's all kinds of programs left and right. In the days of taking kids to jail and writing tickets, especially in California, with the way our laws have changed, we've adapted. So I'm asking them to adapt those old documents and findings.
Absolutely. And we don't need to get into that with everybody here, but what's one of the more rewarding parts of your job as an SRO? Go ahead there, Rudy.
You know what the best part is to see a graduating class from the 9th grade all the way to the 12th grade, and to see the transformation in a child's life. From in the beginning, they might come to you and be like, "Oh, who's this guy?" Right? Or you've seen them truly. If you've worked your area, you've seen them from entering kindergarten all the way through their senior life. I think probably one of the best rewarding things I've seen. I showed up at a car accident scene, and it was a pretty hard car accident scene. Obviously, you don't like to see some of the things that happen in a car accident scene. Luckily, everybody survived that day. But as soon as we picked somebody out of that car, we took him out. The fireman tapped me on the shoulder, and he goes, "Officer Perez, I got it." And I go, "Okay." I walked back, and I didn't think about the Officer Perez part. And once the scene was secure, young kid comes up to me. He takes his fireman helmet, and he goes, "Hey, it was because of you I went into first responders." Right? I go, "You should have been a cop, but we'll leave this fireman," bantering back and forth. But it was one of the greatest moments to see that, and I have seen kids transform. I think everybody on here, Rich and Don has, and you guys have that story that you mentored somebody and walked somebody through a phase of life that you're truly you were impacting, and that is probably the best rewarding things to see now, because these are the same people that are standing up for us now.
Absolutely. And Chris Anderson on Facebook says, "Rudy taught my class at Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. Great guy. Been an SRO for 12 years now and love it." Thank you for your comment there, Chris. He also says, "And a heck of a speaker." And we can see that right. We all see that. Thanks, right guys. Here now. Everyone on the panel is a heck of a speaker. Appreciate you guys. All right. Don, what was one of the most rewarding parts of your gig as an SRO?
Well, there have been several. And I can tell you that one of which is that I've worked in this area for a long time, and I've migrated over to being the liaison officer for the elementary schools. And in the elementary schools, I have parents of elementary school students who used to be my students. So when you come over to a graduation, and then you've got all of these parents who wants to take pictures with you with their kids, and I was their SRO, that's amazing. And the other part is when you work in a station and you've got, say maybe 5 SROs, and 3 of the 5 SROs, you were their SRO. And it speaks to a lot of things. It speaks to the impact of the program. And the
You just
program,
aged yourself, buddy. You aged yourself.
That's what I was about to say there, Don. It's been saying how long you've been on the PD there. How long
and
you
then
been out there?
also when I look at CNN on Sunday mornings, and I see Victor Blackwell, and then Victor Blackwell is a reporter on a CNN with his own show. Well, he was a student at the first school that I worked at, and now he's a lead guy on CNN. And I can say this firsthand is that, Victor was doing the same thing back in 1999, talking on the PA system at the school, and he's doing the same thing right on CNN. And I can tell you firsthand that this program does work. It does work, but in order for the program to be successful, there has to be an investment on the part of the entire community. And if you do it the right way, the successes of the program are just amazing.
Absolutely.
And Dale, those, and forgive me for saying that, but those are the things that are not quantifiable, because all these studies that you see, right? All these studies that are that Rich talked about, that are anti-police, they do this, they do that. You can't quantify how many kids I have impacted in a positive way. Yes. You can't quantify how many threat assessments we've done that has stopped massive threats and would have killed somebody. You can't quantify that. So those are the things, but you're about to feel a little quantification when you've removed SROs. We're about to see some things that have been spiked up. So that's what I tell people. I go, you can't quantify the work of an awesome working SRO.
Yeah, can't prove a negative. And last but certainly not least, Rich, what is one of the most rewarding parts of your job as an SRO?
I can't touch what these guys brought up. I mean, I've got several stories too, but I can just think of the little ones, just driving down the street, having kids wave hi to you.
Yeah.
You don't see, I mean, it's different now. Having kids knock on my door. I got candy in my office. My security supervisor, I don't know why you buy candy all the time. I spend $1,000 out of my pocket for kids. But I've been doing this for a long time, and I started a program years ago called Cops and Jobs. And it allowed cops to intersect with kids. I have kids now that I still talk to that are cops, that are assembly people in the state of California that are currently serving our country. And the fact that I still talk to them, I talk to their parents, and they appreciate what I've done, and that was 10 years ago, keeps me going.
Awesome. All right. I appreciate all the stories there. We're going to start wrapping this up here real quick. But I want to keep you guys on board because we got a little surprise we're going to do here. Let's get a competition going here real quick. Let me get something here. We're going to play a game with you guys. We call it Black and Blue. And the winner here is going to get a fabulous Black and Blue t-shirt there. You see that? All right. Lizzie's wearing one as well. All right. So the winner's going to get that. Let me pull this up here on the screen here for you. All right, everybody can see that. All right, this game here is called, let me get it started, Schoolhouse Pop. Schoolhouse Pop. Yes. Take on the old Schoolhouse Rock. I'm sure you guys remember that. What we're going to do is we are going to name a famous school from pop culture, probably TV or movies, and the first one to answer it gets a point. First one to five correct answers will win that beautiful t-shirt. So Lizzie's gonna take on the duties here. So here we go.
All right. Here we go. The school is Springfield Elementary.
The Simpsons, yes.
Hey, point.
All right. So just yell out your name, not the answer. Yell out your name because you might be wrong. So if you want to answer the first one like a buzzer, your buzzer is your name.
Okay.
Ready.
Bayside High School.
No, I'm going
Go ahead, Rudy.
Zach Morris and
Saved by the Bell, Rich.
Saved by the Bell. Oh, Rich, you got it.
Rich swung in it. Yes, you took too long.
Thank you.
There you go. You got some pictures there?
Here we go. Bronson Alcott High School.
One more time.
Bronson Alcott High School. All right. Rolling with the
Got me on
homies.
that one.
Stacey Dash was in this movie. Alicia Silverstone.
Come on, guys. Somebody.
Rhymes with do this. You're totally.
Nobody knows that
Rich.
one.
Rich, Mean Girls.
No. Close though.
All right. Nobody got that one. Clueless.
Oh,
All right. Next one. Rancho Carne High School. There were cheerleaders.
Rich, Bring It On.
Hey.
yes.
Very good, Rich. All right.
Rich, you got two. Rich.
Okay. Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters.
Rudy. X-Men.
Yes. All right.
You gonna get on the board here, Don?
I don't
you
think
at?
so. Got to go back a little further for me.
I give you a free one. Okay, before this one, Bates High School.
Bates High School.
Stephen King.
Oh, that's right. That's right. That's right.
Prom. Rhymes with scary.
Bates High School.
Horror movie.
Uh,
Rhymes
The-
with scary. Not Mary, but
Rich,
Jim.
What was that, Rich?
There's a superstar whose first name is Jim, and his last name rhymes with scary. He's from Canada.
Misery.
No.
Famous scene: blood on the head. Dump blood on the head at the prom.
Fandom.
Terry.
Oh, that was long.
See, Lynn knew that
Oh,
one.
yeah.
Lynn, you a little slow. Come on, man, pick up speed.
Come on, Don. You were there. You should have known.
Can't remember.
All right,
Come on.
here we
Rudy
go.
got two,
Let's
Rich
see.
got two, and Don, you got zero. Come on.
That's right.
Bel Air Academy
Which one is it? Oh.
in
once again?
West Philadelphia, born and raised on the
Oh,
playground.
Fresh
I
Prince.
got one. I got
Give
one.
that to Don. Give that to Don.
Oh, we
Oh,
skipped
no.
it.
Good one. Wrong.
Oh,
All right, here we
skipped
go.
it. Go back there.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Go
Okay.
in order there.
Ridgemont High School.
Richmond.
Nicolas Cage, Forrest Whitaker, Anthony Edwards. Rhymes with past rhymes as his taunts die.
Lead on me.
No,
No,
I would have known that one.
The name of the movie rhymes with what?
Past rhymes as his taunts die. There's a
Rich,
movie.
Fast,
Who's the
Fast
star
Times
of
at
that? I
Ridgemont
think
High.
Yeah, he got
There
it. He
you
got
go.
it. Rich got it.
Oh, that's right.
All right. James Buchanan High School.
James Buchanan.
Bridges, welcome back, Carter.
Hey, he got it.
There we go.
Okay,
He knew
here
that
we
one.
have Bel Air Academy.
He knew the one from the from the 70s. He knew that one.
That's right.
Oh, okay.
You got that.
Okay, here we go. This is don't turn it yet. This one. The song on this one. Fair East Side.
Bridges,
Hey.
Lean on me.
There we go. I'm on fire. We're rolling.
All right, here we go. Next one. Shermer High School.
Shermer High School.
Molly Ringwald, Emilio Estevez, Judd
Red
Nelson.
16 Candles. Or
Close.
Rich, St. Elmo's Fire.
Fast time at Richmond
Detention.
House.
Rhymes with necklace fudge.
Oh, you got me.
You eat this in the morning. The first meal of the day is called.
Breakfast Club. Bridges,
Hey.
Breakfast Club.
you're far now. Watch out.
Don came from behind. He's up 4. He's got 4.
There we go. We can end this now.
Rich got 3, and Rudy's got 2.
Come on,
All right,
ladies.
here's the next one. William
What's the
McKinney High School.
What is it?
William McKinley High School. It's a musical, Jane Lynch, on Fox TV. Rhymes with free.
Grease? No.
It starts with that letter.
Rich,
Hey,
Glee.
Rich said Glee.
All right, 4-4. Rich and Don both got
Go
4.
ahead and take this thing.
All right, here we go. Millard Fillmore High School. It's a show from the 80s. Smart Kids, Robin Givens. It rhymes with Dead of the Last. Blank shoulders, knees, and toes.
I don't think anyone knows that
Pointing to my
Head.
of the
Head of the class.
Rich, head of
21 Jump Street?
Head of the class. Nobody remembers that show with Robin Givens in it.
I
think
I'm
Don
too young
won.
to remember that.
Don won.
on one.
No.
Don,
Don
you are
can
the
take
winner.
You got to do a TikTok dance, Don.
That's it right there.
All right. That was fun. But Don, you are the winner. You get that. You came from behind, my brother.
Yeah, you know what? That's what happens.
The mail-in ballots came in.
Real quick, Joseph Cameron says, thank you all for what you do to protect our children. And Christina says, so proud of SROs. They are the reason I feel safe sending my daughter to school, along with the one in my family that serves proudly. All right. Thank you there, Christina. And any last words before we get out of here, one by one? Go ahead, Rich. Any last words you want the audience to know about the SRO program and the importance of officers in schools?
I want to thank you all for hosting us tonight, and Dale and Elizabeth for doing this, and both of you guys' leadership and representing a profession, a part of a profession which is definitely needed right now, most critical in our country. Hopefully leaders throughout our country, legislators, school board leaders, as well as presidents or chiefs and sheriffs understand how important it is.
Absolutely. Go ahead there, Don. Last final words.
Well, I just want to thank you guys for this tremendous opportunity. I think that it's so important for we as like law enforcement to get out there and to do the advocacy work and to invest in the training and to make sure that when we assign officers to our nation's schools, we assign the officers that are the best within the agency and not the type of officer that we're kind of trying to hide. We need the best and the brightest for our kids, and we should spare absolutely nothing when it comes to ensuring their safety. And I want to thank you guys for this opportunity. This was amazing.
Thank you. Appreciate you. And Rudy, final word.
Hey, thanks again. I always tell people when you're not at the table, you're going to be on the menu. And guess what? I don't want to be on the menu. SROs can't be on the menu. And I thank you, Rich, and thank you, Don, and thank you, both of you, for the moment of having this conversation. I want to tell parents, and I'm telling you, parents, you are part of the answer for us. Community leaders, you are part of the answer for us. But at the end of it, it really matters to us to get a kid to graduate and be one of those productive Americans that comes back and contributes to society. And how do we fight alcoholism? How do we fight drugs? Is getting kids well educated, and being a police officers are part of that. Thank you guys for letting us do that and letting us be part of this conversation tonight. I truly appreciate it.
Absolutely. And Lynn says again, this was great. So we appreciate you. Thank you all. So thank you all. So, all right. We appreciate everyone. Todd Pearson says, hope to see you all in Orlando in 2021. I hope to be there. I appreciate everybody for doing it.
Yes, you did. Yeah.
Thank you for joining us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and Periscope. I want to thank our guests, Rudy, Don, and Rich, for joining us here today. I appreciate everybody. Tune in next week. For my co-host, Liz, my name is Dale, and I'm out.
This has been a Maitre D' Entertainment presentation.